So let's take a look at the chapter 22 parsing. And here we've got 10 lovely exercises. I will do them in any order, but I would like to make sure we cover all of them if possible. So number 10. Yes, we can do number 10. All right. So with number 10, we have egenamein. Egenamein. This is from what verb? What's the lexical form? Yeah, this is genomai. Does that look sort of familiar? Does it sort of seem like it could be genomai? Yeah? Yeah. You can see it. See the stem there is gen, right? Gen. So, here's the question. Is this using the present stem? This form here, egenamein. It is. It's using the present stem because, at least as far as we know, the present stem is what's being used for the lexical form, and this matches. What does the augment tell me about this form in terms of what it might be? What tense might use the augment? It's a past time, so what are my two past time forms? Okay, good. So imperfect or aorist, and right now the only kind of aorist I know is the second aorist, right? Okay, let's just check out the ending here. I have main. What is that? That is a middle passive ending. So if it's imperfect, it would be imperfect middle passive. If it's second aorist, it'll be middle. One of the things that we learn from this chapter is that the aorist middle and the aorist passive are going to be different forms. They're always different. Whereas in the imperfect, middle and passive can be the same, and they are the same. So anytime we have an aorist middle, it will be different from its aorist passive. Okay? So you can't put aorist middle passive anymore if you've been doing that. Okay, now for the mood, of course, we're still in the indicative mood. What person and number is main? First singular. Good. That's first singular. Is that an active or, excuse me, a primary or a secondary type of first singular? The primary form of the middle passives would be not main, but my. Okay, my. Remember, my saitai. Okay, good. So we've got this almost entirely parsed. Now the question that we have to ask ourselves is, which of these is it going to be? Is it going to be the imperfect or the second aorist? How do I know? Exactly. The imperfect uses the same stem as the present. Okay? The imperfect and the present both use the same stem. Can an aorist verb use the same stem as a present stem? The answer is yes, if that verb is not a second aorist. Okay? We're going to learn the first aorist in the next chapter. When we have a first aorist, the first aorist stem might be the same as the present stem. But if the aorist is a second aorist, its stem will always be different than the present stem. Okay? Does genomai have a second aorist when we look at its aorist form? The answer is yes. How do we know that? How do we know that? How can I tell if a verb's aorist is a second aorist and not a first aorist? Where might I look? Okay, you go to the lexical form, and all it's going to give you is the present. And so you can only know what the present stem is with that. But what else do you get when you get a new vocab word? What does Mounce give you? Yes, he gives you the different tense stems in the form of a principal parts synopsis, right? So if you go to genomai, on page 199, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth verb down is genomai. Notice that you have, in parentheses, below the gloss, what form is in parentheses? What does Mounce give you here? It's the imperfect. It's the imperfect. Why is it in parentheses? Because it's not a real principal part, because it's not a different stem than the present stem, okay? In other words, you could infer the imperfect if you already know the present stem, and you will always know the present stem because you'll always know the lexical form. Now, the second real principal part is which one? Genesamai. What is that? What tense is that? The future. And it should be the future active. You'll notice that genesamai has a mai ending, though. So Mounce would say, he would call this a deponent verb in the future. You would still translate it the way you translate the present, but just with the future form. And so I become, or am, in the present. In the future, I will become, or I will be. All right? Don't try to make it sound passive, because you can't really make this a passive verb anyway. Okay, the third form is which one? The aorist form. So if it's a second aorist, how am I going to know that? Well, I'm going to look at the aorist form in that third principal part, and I'm going to be looking for whether it has a first aorist tense formative or whether it doesn't. Does this have the first aorist tense formative, which is the sigma alpha? No, it doesn't. All it has is no tense formative. It just has the augment, the stem, and the connecting vowel, and then the personal endings. And if it doesn't have a tense formative, it must be a second aorist. And if it's a second aorist, its tense stem has to be different than the present tense stem. Is it? Yes. What is the second aorist's tense stem? What's that? It's gen. Okay. The second aorist's tense stem is going to have a gen stem as opposed to a gin stem. Okay? So you can always tell the difference between the second aorist of genomai and the imperfect of genomai. And this is the only thing that will be different between the two. Gen versus gen. All right? If you drink too much gen, you won't be able to tell the difference. Yes. All right. So now what do we have? We have gen, not gen. So this must be what? The imperfect, and not the second aorist. Okay? And if it's the second, or the imperfect, then I could have something like I was becoming, right? Or if it's construed as being over time, I became, or I was. Okay? So it could be I was becoming. So
Is there a passive for that?
No.
So just middle.
Because you can't make something passive unless when it's active it's transitive, right?
Middle passive.
Yeah. Well, what I'm indicating is that the form is middle passive, but the semantics, it can't be passive, right? Okay. Good. What else?
Can we do number 7?
Yeah, number 7. So we have eggnon, everybody. Say that with me. Eggnon? It sounds like something you drink at Christmas time, huh? Eggnon. All right. So eggnon. Do you see anything identifiable here that would help you with your parsing? Things at the front, things at the back, things in the middle.
There's a tense, or an augment.
Yeah, there looks like there's an augment here, doesn't there? Okay, so if it is, then it's which two possibilities? Yeah, imperfect or aorist, because those are the augmented tenses we've learned. All right, good. Now, look over here. I just have a new at the back side. What might that be?
First singular or third.
Okay, yeah, we've learned first singular and third plural for the secondary endings. Is this an active or a middle passive kind of secondary ending? This is an active one. Okay, so we know it's imperfect or second aorist active indicative at this point, and it's first singular, third plural, or maybe both. Right? Okay. Now, looking at the middle, I've got gno here. And what we have to figure out is, what is the lexical form? The lexical form will tell us what the present stem is, and then we can compare this with it and see, is that using the present stem? If it is, then it's imperfect. If it's not, then it's a second aorist. Okay? So what is the lexical form of this word? Yes, it's, by the way, people frequently get it confused with genomai. Okay, so be careful with these. They have gammas and news and stuff like that. All right, so genosko. Genosko, there we go. So, what is the present stem of genosko? How do I find the stem? I drop any personal endings, connecting vowels, augments, tense formatives, and I'm left with my stem. So if I drop all that, what do I have left with genosko? No. It's actually the whole genosk thing. Genosk is my present stem. Sounds like a soup? Genosk? Like, what kind of soup is that? Yeah. Genosko. All right. Now, compare genosk with gno. Those are not the same stem, are they? No. That's right. So can this be the imperfect? No, because the imperfect has to use genosk in it. It would be egenoskan. Okay? It would have that full amount. The stem in the second aorist here is shorter than the stem in the present. So remember how we said in chapter 20, the present stem is usually more modified. It's usually got more stuff attached to it than the real root. The real root is gno, and genosko has added some extra letters. Okay. Anyhow, we'll get rid of the imperfect. So this is a second aorist form. So there's going to be one more slight change here, and I'm going to direct your attention to Mounce on this. Go to page 201. Page 201, we have at the top the paradigm for egnon, the form of genosko in the second aorist. And look at what we've got. Egnon, egnos, egno. Egnomen, egnote, and third plural is egnosan. Egnosan. So in this situation, my third person plural form is not just nu, but sigma alpha nu. As we go farther into the aorist and other tenses, we're going to see san. San will show up again as an alternate third person plural form. Okay? And for genosko second aorist, it does not use the simple nu for third person plural. So it's only first singular here. So how am I going to translate this? I knew. That's right. I knew.
So how can you like tell when the ending of the third person plural isn't going to be a nu?
You should expect it to be a nu for these forms unless you learn otherwise. So that's why he gave you this specially here, because under normal circumstances, the second aorist's active third plural form would just be a nu.
Is this one exception we have to learn, or are there multiple exceptions that fit that same pattern?
There's a couple of a handful of others that'll use the san ending in the second aorist. Like, yeah, this very next one in 2218, he gives you another form there too. But that's technically a pluperfect, but still it's using the san ending. So it's augmented. It's using the secondary endings, but its third person plural form is san instead of just nu. Well, what I would just say is if you learn a verb that does have a different third person plural ending, certainly learn it. But the better thing would be for you to just to realize that the common third plural ending is nu, but there is an alternate, which is san. Okay? All right. What other ones do we want to look at here? Okay, so the number 2 form, everybody say this with me, egonomatha. All right. So, does this epsilon help me with parsing? What is that? That's an augment. Good. So my tense has got to be what? Yes, imperfect or aorist. And in this chapter, the only kind of aorist we know is the second aorist, right? All right. Look at the ending. I have metha. Metha. Does that help me? Yeah, that's clearly first person plural. Is that an active or a middle passive kind of ending? That's a middle passive. So in the imperfect, it's either middle passive, or if it's second aorist, it could only be middle because the aorist passives are different. We're going to learn that in chapter 24. Okay. So indicative. Of course, everything's indicative right now. Now here's the question. What is my lexical form? I've got gen here. What's my lexical form? Genomai. So do these share the same stems? Genomai and aganomatha. No, different stems. So this is not the imperfect. This must be the second aorist. Okay? And how am I going to translate this? What kind of past time do I typically use with aorist? Usually a simple past. Okay? So translate that. Yeah, we became. We became. All right. Now, what if I had had not agenomatha, but agenomatha? How would you translate that? That's right. It would be imperfect. We were becoming. Okay? We were becoming. So that's not what we have. Okay?
So in that case, can it also be passive?
No, not, I mean, in form, it's middle passive because middle and passive are identical. But there's not any passive semantics to this verb because it can't be converted to a passive meaning, right? You can only make a verb passive if it has an active form that is transitive, that takes a direct object. So I killed would take a direct object. I killed the bumblebee, right? Then I could make that passive. The bumblebee was killed. But if I say the bumblebee became something, a lion, I couldn't make that passive, right? I wouldn't say something like the bumblebee was becomed or something like that. So intransitive verbs can't be made passive. And become is an intransitive verb. All right, others? Let's look at 5. Oh, 6? Okay. Well, here, let's look at 5 and then 6, okay? We have Evelyn. Everybody say that with me. Evelyn. Evelyn. That sounds like an English name, doesn't it? Here's my daughter, Evelyn. My wife threw her out. Okay, so let me ask you a question. You've got a nu here, all right? You have an epsilon here. Are you thinking this is a present or a past form? It's looking past, isn't it? Now, assuming that this is past, imperfect, or second aorist, this nu, is that a personal ending nu? Yes, or is it a movable nu? Which is it? Are you sure it's movable? What's that? The root's ball. Okay, so what is the epsilon here? Is the epsilon the personal ending? It's the connecting vowel to get you to the personal ending. That's right. Connecting vowels are omicron before mu and nu. So if nu is a personal ending, what would the connecting vowel had to have been? It would have to be omicron. It's not. So this nu is not the personal ending nu. It is the movable nu. So what is my real personal ending here? Yeah, it's actually a tau, ebelet, but the tau at the end of the word does what? It drops out. Well, that's a great question. That's a great question. It's because when you reconstruct the verbal system, you see that you've got this pattern of mi-CT, right, for the present active, mai-sai-tai, which has MST in both, main-sa-ta, and, mu sigma tau is the secondary active, which that tau falls out, and then main sa ta. So the tau is present in all the other forms, just not that one. But if you posit that there is a tau that was there and fell out, that would explain why you have an epsilon for your connecting vowel, right? Okay, so this is therefore what person and number? Third singular. Okay, the tau that drops off and leaves me with no ending, just the connecting vowel and sometimes the movable nu and sometimes not. That's a third singular. For which kind of endings? Primary or secondary? Secondary. Active or middle passive? Secondary. The active. Good. So the last thing then is to ask ourselves, what's the lexical form which will tell us what the present stem is? It's balo. And so the present stem uses the double lambda ball. This form is using the single lambda ball. So it's got to be aorist. If it were imperfect, there'd have to be two lambdas, right? So it's a second aorist. How am I going to translate this? He, she, it, what? Well, it's active. It's active, active, active. So the subject does the action. He, she, it, through. Yep, through. Or throwed. Okay, so you see if it's active, if the verb is active, that means the subject, which the personal ending marks the subject's doing the action. It's not passive. Okay, the subject has to do the action. So he, she, or it did the throwing. He, she, or it threw. Because it's second aorist, I'm going to use the simple past. Threw, not was throwing, because that's what the imperfect would have been. Okay? All right. Now, look at number 6. I have eschan here. Eschan. And is there anything that might help us with parsing? That looks like an augment, doesn't it? So, imperfect or second aorist, right? Okay. What's my ending here? Is this going to help me know whether it's active or middle passive in the secondary tenses? Yeah, it's active. Just the nu by itself is an active kind of ending. Indicative. Which active, secondary active endings is the nu for personal ending? First singular or third plural. Okay. All right. Now, once I strip away the augment, the connecting vowel, and the personal ending here, I'm left with s. Okay. What is that? From sec. Yeah, the real root is sec. What verb's lexical form does that come from? Or comes from that? Yeah, it's echo. The real present active indicative is echo. Echo. So ech is my my present stem. Okay? I don't have the same stem here, do I? So what do you think this might be? Yeah, this is the second aorist. So S-con. And how am I going to translate this? I or they, and then verb. Aorist, just use a simple past, had. Okay, do not make it passive. Don't say they were had. That's right. Okay, this is an active verb, so the subjects are doing the action in a sense, right? You don't really, having isn't an action, but it's a situation. Oh, yes, I didn't. I should make sure I grab those on the break. All right.
Is it echo like a CK or ho?
Yeah.
Exact same. I was about to ask.
Yeah.
Is it like a velar fricative?
Yeah. It's echo. Echo.
Echo.
Echo. Yeah. You need, it's a fricative. You need to blow some air through that. Echo. Echo.
Yeah, I hear a C there. So
Yeah. Well, here, let me just tell you that nowadays people do seem to pronounce these fricatives and the square of stops as simply fricatives. I do think that in an earlier stage of Greek, it was actually a hard stop followed by the fricative sound. So it probably was echo, as opposed to echo. Mm-hmm.
because Mounce describes it as the CH in lock. I don't know if
Yeah.
Maybe you teach me
Like
something.
Loch, the Loch Ness monster. Yes. Right.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Okay.